talking about what your YouTube channel is about. Then at the end of this video, I want you to go back into the comments and I want you
I'm
to
recording
look at
because
other small
this lady's really interesting. I've got over 21,000 YouTube views and stuff like that, so
comment on a couple of their videos.
It doesn't matter, but
their engagement. But listen,
I wish I would have known this in the beginning.
Only subscribe to channels that you're actually interested in, because I see this a lot. I see small YouTubers gather here and everybody just starts subscribing to each other, but you're not subscribing to channels that you're actually interested in. And what happens with that is that the YouTube algorithm actually ends up getting confused as to who your audience is, because you have all kinds of random people subscribing to information that they're not even interested in. So number one, it confuses the algorithm when random people just subscribe to your channel. Number two, when you post a video, YouTube serves it first to your subscribers. And if your subscribers show no interest in your video, that video starts to die. So if you're getting a whole bunch of people that are not interested in your channel to just subscribe to you to help you, it's actually not helping you, it's actually hurting you. Let's say you just subscribe to someone's channel just to help them out, and this person has a channel about, I don't know, let's say salmon farming in Alaska, and you've got zero interest in this. So when YouTube then serves you that person's video and you don't click on it because you don't really want to know what's going on with salmon in Alaska, what happens is that YouTube take that as a signal that this person's video is not interesting, and then they're not going to serve it to other people. So it is so important that you only subscribe to the channels that actually interest you, the topic. So that's why I want you to write down what your channel is about, then only subscribe to the channel that actually interests you. I've been wanting to do this for a long time because I feel like this is going to really help a lot of people. Because imagine if we could get this video, if this video got thousands of views and we got people, thousands of people subscribing to each other, this is really going to give a lot of small YouTubers the boost they need. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I actually I got the idea and I told my son about it, and he was so excited because he actually has his own little YouTube channel that he started. And every day he's been asking me every time he comes home from school, hey mom, did you do that video, the video where you ask small YouTubers to subscribe to each other? And I'm like, no, I haven't. So I'm like, okay, finally I've done it. So you might actually see my son in the comments as well, but only subscribe to his channel if you're interested in tech, because he's really interested in tech. So check that out. Anyway, moving right along, let's get right into these settings, guys, so we can get your videos being recommended by YouTube. Okay, so the first hidden setting that you want to go and update on your YouTube channel right now is you want to go to YouTube Studio, and only on desktop, because this hidden setting is actually not even on the app, guys. It's not on the app. And I've had so many people say this in the comments on my previous video, because I did talk about this in one of my videos, and everyone's like, I can't find it. It is not on the app, guys. It's not on the mobile version. It is only on desktop. So I'm going to show you right now exactly where to find this. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you are on your desktop and on your channel, you want to go to YouTube Studio. And once you've opened up YouTube Studio, you want to go to settings, and the settings are going to be in the bottom left hand corner. You click on settings, and then this settings window will pop up, and then you want to go to channel. Once you hit channel, it's going to bring up this basic info, and on this you can put the keywords for the niche that you're in. So I've already filled this out, but when I first started, this was not filled out, and it didn't even have a country. So YouTube didn't even know what country, to serve my content to. It didn't really know who to serve what my niche was, until I actually updated these settings right here. So the first one I put in there was Elevate with Tate. That way, as a new channel, you want people to be able to find you. You want to be the first person that pops up when they type in your name, especially if you have a comment. Here's another little trick that you can do. You can actually put in your competitors' names in this section as well, especially the big YouTubers, the large YouTubers, because a lot of people go on YouTube and they search for, for example, in my niche, Think Media is one of the biggest YouTube channels out there in my niche. So people search Think Media, so I have Think Media as one of my.
fucking ridiculous. Why do you need 4 drinks to go get a goddamn cup of coffee?
Sorry. Are we ready? Are you okay? Huh? I can't hear you.
I said, not really, baby. I don't feel well.
What can I do to help? Oh, sorry. Hi, Dewey. Hi, John. work tonight, huh?
Yes. I do. Every other night.
I really like these. It's a different lead. Are we gonna stop anywhere? Huh?
Do what?
Are we gonna stop anywhere at the park or something? I think I have $10.
I think my card works here.
Huh?
I think my card works here. Works everywhere but the fucking County go or gas station. as credit if it would work.
Huh?
I wonder if I ran it as credit instead of debit if it would work.
Did it work? What if they're not picking on our cards?
It's only at the gas station. It's not anywhere else.
Okay, just over here?
No, all of them. All three of them. They all say encryption error. She's like, well, that's a first. I've never seen that one before. I said, well, it makes me think that there's something with your guys' system. Because it's not a chip card.
It's not a what?
It's not a chip card.
Oh,
It's the old-fashioned swipe, but that's what they gave me. I mean, it's a relatively new card. I don't want to call and tell them I want a new card because then they'll cancel this one and I won't have any money for a week.
wait till I get a check before you do that. That way I can give you some money. That day that Tony and Jason came around, the next day they told me there was a possible abduction on a female.
Yeah, I heard.
A while the cops were around.
I heard you left the phone on.
Huh?
Said I heard you left the phone on. I don't believe him. If it happened a long time ago.
Yeah, probably. How did she hear me when I left the phone on?
Because you didn't hang up. You had called me. You were on the phone with me when they walked up.
What now?
You were talking to me when they walked up.
Oh,
And you didn't hang up. So I heard the conversation.
Our pictures are better. Are we gonna go get a rent check? Huh?
I already got it. Drop it off.
Huh?
So I already got it. I just need to text Braden and see if he wants me to drop it off or not. On her life. Now news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Dan Roman. The federal government is partially shut down after Congress failed to fully fund it. But the House Speaker says he expects the shutdown to end this week. NPR's Luke Garrett reports.
A massive spending bill that would fund a large swath of the government passed the Senate Friday. The bill now heads to the House, where some Republicans are raising concerns over the limited 2-week funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana tells Fox News President Trump negotiated this funding bill, and he expects the GOP-controlled House to send it to Trump's desk.
We'll get all this done by Tuesday, I'm convinced.
Once the government is funded, Johnson said Trump is willing to work with Democrats on some DHS reforms.
Some of the reforms in the processes we're fine with them. For example, we want body cameras on immigration custody enforcement agents.
Democrats demanded reforms on DHS after its agents shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens in Minnesota last month. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
The bomb cyclone has dumped about a foot of snow in some parts of North Carolina, making the snowfall one of the biggest in years. The North Carolina State Patrol says there were at least 750 traffic collisions Saturday, but none were fatal. Freezing temperatures have stretched all along the East Coast and through the Midwest. Meteorologist Brian Hurley with the Weather Prediction Center in College Park, Maryland, says the extreme cold weather that hit much of the country will slowly begin to moderate later this week.
It doesn't look like the week is going to be as cold as it was last week here in the eastern U.S. And even with the next wave of cold air by late in the week, temperatures during the day, even at night, aren't going to be as cold as being, up to this point here in the United States.
Overnight temperatures in parts of Florida fell into the mid-20s, the lowest in 90 years. Israeli authorities say that preparations are now underway to reopen Gaza's main border crossing. And reopening the crossing is a major step in advancing the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. NPR's Daniel Estrin has more from Jerusalem.
The Rafah border crossing has been almost completely sealed since Israeli forces captured it in 2024. Most Palestinians have not been able to leave or enter Gaza since. Now, Egyptian authorities, Palestinian security officers, and European Union border patrol officers are making final arrangements to reopen the land crossing. The Palestinian committee tasked with taking over Gaza's day-to-day affairs says Palestinians will begin to leave Gaza Monday. The numbers are expected to be limited, only 15 medical patients daily, accompanied by 2 companions each. Gaza health officials say 20,000 medical patients need to travel abroad for treatments unavailable in Gaza. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Jerusalem.
And from Washington, you're listening to NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the estate of Joan B. whose bequest serves as an enduring investment in the future of public radio and seeks to help NPR be the model for high-quality journalism in the 21st century. This is NPR.
Good morning. This is CPR News at KRCC. I'm Arnold Reyes. The governor's office issued a verbal disaster declaration for the birth of Eagle County last week. CPR's Tegan Whitman reports.
While the U.S. Department of Agriculture hasn't formally confirmed the presence of avian flu, the state has confirmed it. The positive test was at a big poultry farm with more than 1 million chickens. State officials are setting up a response center to test and contain any sick birds. The avian flu poses little threat to humans, so cooked eggs and poultry are safe to eat. It can spread on farms or from migratory birds. This is the 4th case in Colorado in January. The avian flu has been present in the state since 2022. Weld County is the biggest poultry producing area in the state. Tegan Wendland, CPR News.
It's also been a rough flu season for humans in Colorado, but numbers tracked by the state are showing signs that things are easing up. The week between Christmas and New Year's had a record 861 people hospitalized with influenza. This week, about a quarter of that number are still in the hospital with the flu. 20.5% of Colorado residents have gotten the flu shot, which is slightly less than last year. Doctors say it's not too late to get one. Durango residents have been celebrating the dead of winter for more than 50 years in Snowdon. The 47th annual festival concludes this weekend with quirky events all over town. Snowdon began in 1979 as a way to boost Durango's visitation and local morale in the cool months. You're listening to CPR News at KRCC. Have a great Sunday. Listening to CPR News, I'm Brian Arnold, host of our daily news interview program, Colorado Matters. On the weekends, we re-air the best of our shows from the previous week. So what you're about to hear is a rebroadcast. You can listen to Colorado Matters anytime at CPR.org, subscribe to our podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Colorado Matters.
Welcome to Colorado Matters on CPR News and KRCC. I'm Anthony Cotter. Although she's acted on stage for most of her life, Jenna Bainbridge never envisioned herself performing on Broadway. The issue wasn't much talent, but rather accessibility. Partially paralyzed as a child, Bainbridge didn't think she'd find the accommodations necessary to live and work in New York. But in 2024, Bainbridge indeed made her debut on The Great White Way, appearing in the hit production of Sus. That success has led to a major role, playing Nesta Rose in Wicked. I spoke with the Sedalia native about her work, the impact family, the Colorado Theater Company for Artists with Disabilities has had on her life and career, and Consultability, the company she co-founded to make the arts more accessible for actors and audiences. We began our conversation with a photo.
Yes.
I did a photo shoot a couple years ago now, but she did these like personality photographs, and I just think that they're so colorful.
Like getting kind of Rosie the Riveter vibes.
Yeah. I love kind of vintage feel and look for fashion.
Do you do a lot of fashion work these days in the big city?
I do. Part of my TikTok presence is I have this series called Does It Sit, where I analyze different outfits that I've worn, but also things that I see on like red carpets and reunion shows, and talk about how well they work when using wheelchairs. honestly, when I watch like reunion shows, most of the time they're sitting on couches, and you can just tell that half of these people did not try their outfit on seated. So they're sitting on the couch and suddenly their outfit looks frumpy, or it doesn't fit as well, or it's, you know, poking them in weird ways. So everyone's gonna sit down. So I really encourage people to sit down in their clothes. But for a wheelchair user, the things that I look for are generally like more cropped silhouettes, things that end above my hip, because that way there's no risk of it rubbing on the wheels throughout the day.
Sounds like a weird, as much as I keep track of keys, I can't
are going to end up being more sittable. If there's lots of volume on your lower half, it can rub on the wheels, it can like blow around.
I think they're on the inside.
It's just not as
How could they be on the inside? You lock the door.
Huh?
They can't be on the inside. You lock the door when you left.
positive. It's one of my favorite things, especially when I meet
You could have had it in your lap or something. Drop them at the gas station.
follow the
What?
series, putting them in person.
You think maybe you could have had them in your lap and they fell off when you were at the gas station?
And it just makes me like so happy that these things that
Do you think it's possible?
I was exploring and, you know, trying to figure out just for myself and decided to share with the internet are helping other people to also figure out how their own sense of style can be translated into these like lovely seated looks.
It sounds like you spend, or you have spent a fair portion of your life, in essence, helping people in your community. I mean, I'm thinking of consultability.
Yeah, it's always been my passion. Anytime I go into a new space, I want to leave it more accessible than how I found it. So whether that's entering the world of fashion, I want it to be more accessible, have an awareness of what accessible fashion means. And especially when I enter the theater, when I'm entering my workplace, I want people to think about how can we make this industry more accessible, more inclusive. And the way that I did that for many years was, yeah, by just giving that expertise and that information away for free, because I wanted the information out there. I wanted people to know. And over time, as
Where were they?
I started asking for feedback, my husband and I, who founded Consultability together, we decided that it was time to make it a full nonprofit so that we could get that information to theaters while also being able to, you know, support ourselves in the process, because it was so much time, so much effort, so much labor that we're putting into this idea, this company, this knowledge. So by turning it into a 501c3, we're able to still get that information to people at a price that they can afford and subsidize that through the helping other people who are passionate about that business as well.
And so is this largely theater companies or workplaces anywhere?
Yeah, so we primarily work with theater companies. Theater is a rather niche industry, and having worked as a professional theater artist now for
Did
my life, I know the intricacies and the quirks of what it means to work in theater. So we approach all of the work from that mindset. But the theater world is highly equal to almost every other industry. So
Sorry.
we've also worked with various other, mostly arts institutions, but we've also worked with all kinds of companies that are interested in how do we make our building more accessible and how do we make our culture more inclusive.
Theaters, needing you for something here. Is there pushback from theaters? Because looking at some of the material surrounding your career, this is something that basically theaters never thought they had to ever think about.
$26.
Is that the
What is
Music Box Theater?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they basically had to build.
Huh?
Is that correct?
Save it for
Yeah,
another
so the
day.
Music Box Theater was built in the 1920s, so like most Broadway theaters, way before the ADA
I should save it for
was
another
ever
day.
legislation. So there were no guidelines or rules out there about having buildings be accessible. So the Music Box over the years had renovated to become accessible for audiences. They'd added an accessible restroom, there was wheelchair accessible seating, there's devices for blind, low vision, hearing, deaf audiences. There's all kinds of accommodations that they were made, but none of those same things were moved on stage. So when I did subs, first thing we did walk through the space. The producers brought me to the theater to look at what needs to shift to make this work. How do we make sure I can get to work every day? So the first thing we did was we added a ramp to the stage door. The stage door had a small step up to it, and that ramp meant that not only could I get in and out of work every day, it also meant that audience members could come and do backstage tours, and it was completely accessible for them, which there are so few theaters that that's the case. So that was a really cool experience to share with our community. We also had to build a dressing room on deck level. So that theater luckily had a space immediately stage right that had been used. In the previous show, it had been their step and repeat, their kind of publicity area to bring guests in. And we were able to transform that space into a dressing room complete with a ADA compliant restroom. So that was also really exciting that I knew that when we left that theater, that bathroom was going to stay there. There would always be an ADA compliant bathroom. Unfortunately, because the building is a historical landmark, they had to remove the ramp from the outside of the building once we vacated, which was incredibly frustrating. So there's no longer a ramp up to the stage door. And it means that in the future, any tenant who rents that building, if they want to make it accessible, they're going to have to take on that expense again to add a ramp to the building. But it at least showed that it can be done.
It had to be taken down? I mean, why couldn't we amend history as it
You know,
we did?
that's exactly my thinking. A lot of these historic landmarks, it prevents access and progress from being made. And, you know, I love that we remember our history and that we want to show where our roots are from and where we came from. But also, if a building is not serving our population now, why are we preserving it the way it is? And the other interesting thing about Broadway is that every Broadway show is technically a tenant in that building. And the rules are that you are renting the space and you have to leave the space in the same condition you found it. And so sometimes that also means removing things like accessibility accommodations.
Well, I mean, at some point we will actually talk about acting, but this is so fascinating. So when it comes to Wicked, like I understand that there were accommodations, I guess, made for you in terms of your dressing room for that, and that it's not as simple as saying, well, instead of being in room A, you're going to be in room B.
Yes, yeah, so shows, it's an interesting thing about theater. The backstage choreography is just as intricate as the onstage choreography. Every single thing you see on stage is blocked down to the second. You know exactly when someone will be standing in a certain spot. And the same thing is true backstage. There are very tight quarters and a ton of people interacting with this space. So we have our quick changes locked down to the second sometimes. We have, you know, there's spacing for where people stand to be out of the way of a set change. All of these things are so intricate, and that extends all the way into the dressing rooms. On Broadway, we have dressers. Their main job is to make sure that, you know, the actors are wearing the right costume at the right time. And their choreography is incredibly intricate. They are bringing all of the costume changes to the various locations throughout the show. And for the 22-year history of Wicked, the role of Nessa has shared a dresser with Bach and Dr. Diligent. So she is in charge of all of us. And she also does a lot of the ensemble changes as well. And Bach and Dr. Diligent have dressing rooms upstairs. And I needed my dressing room to be moved downstairs. So it added an additional element for our dresser that she has to now go between the different floors to make sure that we are all dressed properly for the show. because we can't get into some of our pieces by ourselves. It's just not possible with the time constraints. So she's had to add additional steps, right, literally to her job and to her routine because I needed this accommodation to be closer to the stage. It also meant Nessa shares a dressing room with the standbys for Elphaba and Glinda. And it meant that their dressing room changed as well. They had been upstairs in this dressing room for 22 years, and suddenly they were moved downstairs, and we had a whole switcheroo where, like, Madame Horrible used to be in the room that I'm in, and she moved into Fiero's room, and Fiero moved upstairs. Like, it was a giant puzzle that shifted just so that I could have a closer dressing room. And I'm very grateful that our company was immediately said yes. Wicked immediately said, like, absolutely, we can do that, no problem. And everybody was willing to shift. The show really is like clockwork. And making even small adjustments like that sometimes affect timing. So the fact that everyone was so willing to immediately do it was a huge testament to the company and also to their devotion to making the experience more accessible and more inclusive.
I mean, you had gotten the part, obviously, but were you surprised that they did this? I mean, I'm almost hearing a little bit of that.
Well, so that was all being discussed before I got the part.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's,
Well, are you surprised you actually got the part, knowing that all of that had to take place?
you know, yes and no. Because, like I said, so often we get used to this is the way we've always done things. And depending on who that first point of contact is, when you ask for an accommodation, sometimes they make, quick decisions, and maybe it was a snap decision to say yes or no. So, getting through that first line of defense sometimes is difficult. Asking for accommodations, while it is a reasonable accommodation, the word reasonable has a lot of gray area, and it kind of depends on the interpretation of the individual. So I'm so thrilled that they made the accommodation, and what I think it also shows is every other Broadway house now can look at that and say, okay, great, that was reasonable, and we can do that too. So in the end, I'm not surprised because now I know the people in the building so well, but I didn't know that going in, and I had faced so many times I had faced rejection because theaters were unwilling to have the conversation about accessibility. The feedback I would get from auditions was, we loved your audition, and there would be this ellipses that let me know, okay, yeah, they weren't sure how to make it accessible, and they weren't sure how to have those conversations, or they didn't have time to have those conversations. So I'm very thrilled that Wicked was so excited to make accommodations and to make them really work for me.
Actress and Colorado native Jenna Bainbridge is performing on Broadway in the long-running hit Wicked. When we come back, the impact that 32 bars has on a career. And we don't mean drinking. This is Colorado Matters from CPR News.
Support for Colorado Matters comes from Aspire Allergy and Sinus, providing same-day results and custom treatment plans to tackle allergies at the root of the problem. Locations in Denver, Colorado Springs, and Pueblo. Learn more at aspireallergy.com.
How can Congress work its way towards some restrictions on federal immigration agents? We'll discuss that in the next morning edition from
Thank you.
Weekday mornings
And
until
over there at,
CPR and KRCC. From the 52nd floor of the Capital Registry Building to the knee-high roofs
That's
of
good.
Tiny Town, there are
Well,
places in
I could
Colorado
figure out why I could find
Colorado postcards will
see where
take
my
you there.
purse.
CPR.org.
That's a pretty good hiding place, huh?
This is Colorado Matters from CPR News and KRCC. I'm Anthony Cotton. Let's get back to my conversation with Jenna Bainbridge, the native of Sedalia, Colorado, starring on Broadway as Nessa Rose in Wicked. African Americans often talk about the need to be twice as good in their work in order to succeed or be accepted. And it sounds like I'm hearing some of that here as well. How frustrating a fight has this been, and we'll talk about that.
Take the sweater off.
Obviously, that's a very well community for you, but overall, how tough has this been?
Yeah, knows the feeling of being ostracized for the smallest reasons and feeling like you have something to prove at every moment. And that has definitely been my experience. There's an interview with me when I'm like 15 where I said something about I have to be so good that they can't say no to me. And sometimes that is still my ethos. I'm constantly training to become better, to be the best version of myself that I possibly can be, so that when I go to those auditions, that there will be someone who fights for me. Because that's the other thing about auditioning, is that we come in and we have our 2 minutes in the audition room and then we leave. And you need somebody behind that table, whether that's a director, a casting director, a producer. You need somebody behind the table who's willing to fight for you. And I wanted to be so good that I could convince people to fight for me with only 2 minutes knowing me. And that's an incredibly difficult and draining place to try to hold yourself to. We all want to be the best we can be, but it's hard when you also feel like you are representing an entire community.
2 minutes? That is literally the audition process.
You get 2 minutes, sometimes less. The way that
you got sucks based on 2 minutes.
Yeah, I still have my initial audition video. You sing a cut from a song. It's called 32 bars. You get 32 measures of a song to sing for an audition. Sometimes less. I've seen there are plenty of auditions where you get a 16-bar cut or even an 8-bar cut. An 8-bar cut, that goes by in like 15 seconds. That's really the length of your audition. So my audition for Suffs was, I think it was a 90-second long video. It was a slate, so I just said my name, and then I went into a song that was, a little less than a minute. And that was the total duration of my first audition.
So then what happens next? So you're singing, how do they know that you can actually act as well as sing?
Yeah, so normally the first audition is just a song. And the idea being, if you can act your way through a song, you can probably also just say lines. So for Suffs, the first audition was just a song of my choosing. And then I did sides from the show. So Suffs was entirely sung through at the time. There were no spoken lines. Eventually, by the time we got to Broadway, we did have scenes. But the original concept was that it was more like an opera. It was fully sung through. So my second audition, they sent me, I think it was 2 songs from Suffs that I had to put on camera and send back to them. And then my third audition was a Zoom call. I was in my dining room. I still remember that. There was no furniture. I moved all the furniture. So I was in my dining room and on a Zoom call with the director, the music director, the writer, and their casting team. And that was a slightly longer call. I think that was more like 15 minutes. But they had me once again sing the songs from the show that they had sent me, and then they let me sing a song of my choosing, with some conversation in between. But it really is, they are quick processes. I think my longest audition for Wicked was definitely less than 10 minutes.
It's just stunning. And in both cases, how long was the wait between the last audition and hearing you been cast?
Oh my gosh, the wait, it doesn't matter how long it is, it feels like the longest interminable time. Like it's so awful, to the point where I frequently will just forget I auditioned for things because it's better for my brain to not think about like how long has it been. I keep really diligent notes though, because I don't want to recall that, but I go back and look at, I have this Excel spreadsheet that has every single audition I've ever done since COVID. And it has all of the dates of when I auditioned. So for Wicked, my first audition was in October 24. My second audition was the end of October. So I only had about 2 weeks between my first audition and second audition. And I found out pretty quickly that I had a second audition. But then I didn't hear anything until the beginning of December, was when we started having conversations about possible accommodations that would be needed. And then I heard nothing again until 2 days before Christmas. It was December 23rd that I found out that I booked Wicked. So from first audition was like October 4th to December 23rd. Not terribly long in the grand scheme of theater, but felt like an eternity.
And then you went on in March?
Yeah, so my found out I got the job in December, had my first rehearsal right around Valentine's Day, and debuted the first week of March.
Jenna Bainbridge plays Nessa Rose in the long-running hit Wicked. Up next, why Bainbridge says she never actually considered playing the role on Broadway. This is Colorado Matters from CPR News.
Braden will be back tomorrow after I get off work.
Huh?
Braden will be back tomorrow when I get home from work. He's at church with Grandma right now.
Huh?
They asked me if he wanted me to drop it by Grandma's house. He says, well, I'm at church with Grandma right now, so. I think Grandma's on her last leg.
Hardest thing in the world is to lose your parents. Well, somewhat.
I think it depends who you are.
True. Better yet, depends on how they are.